You're listening to the Greeks Gridiron. Now here's your host, Ethan Haristadoulou.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to the Greeks Gridiron, and more importantly to the UFL Schedule release. Today is February 5th, 2025. I am Ethan Haristadoulou, and today we are diving into the schedule for the 2024 UFL season. The UFL officially dropped it at 8 a.m. this morning, a lot earlier than I honestly thought they were going to. I thought I was going to have time to jump to the gym really quick and then get back before they did the release, but no, they did it as I was driving there. So, plenty to dive into. We're going to go through the key details and things we need to know, and then I'm going to go through all 10 weeks. I'll rattle off the games for you all, go over them, and then I will list 5 of my favorite matchups from the season. So I invite you all to comment down below. Let me hear your thoughts on the scheduling, on the matchups. What are you most excited for? What are you least excited for? And everything in between. But starting with, of course, the key details, the takeaways, the things we need to know. 43 total UFL games. We're looking at 40 regular season games, couple of conference championship games, and then ultimately the UFL championship to wrap things up. Each team's going to be playing 6 conference games and 4 interconference matchups, so it should be a good opportunity to see some of those XFL versus USFL matchups, and we're going to get some of those as early as week number 1. And then the conference championships, and this was something that kind of got thrown around as to what was exactly going to happen. We saw a few different rumors, and I actually talked about one of them a little bit ago and kind of gave my thoughts on it. But the conference championships will pit the top 2 teams with the best records in their respective conferences against each other. So there is no possibility of 3 teams from the XFL side or 3 teams from the UFL or USFL side making it, and then only 1 from the other division. It will be 2 teams from both sides, so an even split in representation. It makes a lot of sense to me. There's obviously the possibility that we get something that happened along the lines of what happened in the XFL last year, with a team that went 4-6 getting in over a team that went 7-3, but ultimately that 4-6 team, the Arlington Renegades, won the championship. So did it really matter? I don't really know, but it is something that we are going to potentially run into, and we'll obviously cross that bridge when we get there. 72% of all UFL games will air on broadcast television, ABC and or Fox. ABC has 10 of the games. Fox will be airing 21. ESPN has 10 of the games. ESPN2 will be airing a game, and FS1 will also be airing a game. The games that are on ESPN and ABC will also be streamed on ESPN Plus, and Fox games will be streaming on the Fox Sports app, and all games will be streamed via television everywhere in some capacity. So you will be able to watch these games. However, there is, for those of you that maybe do like the streaming options, you have that as an option. And thank the good gods, we are not getting a subscription service only game. I cannot believe we're dealing with that in the NFL. We got it in the USFL last year. Keep that crap away from me, to put it nicely. On top of that, season tickets obviously available, but we also got a start date for the release of single game tickets. So you can go ahead, you can reserve your season tickets now if you plan on going to all the games if you live in those areas. But starting February 20th, pre-sale for single game tickets will start, and then February 22nd, you will start getting the full-on publicly available to everybody single game ticket release. So pre-sales on the 20th of this month, 22nd is the full on sale to the public. Get yourself ready for some games. Now, all the details aside, we got to talk the actual matchups of the week. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to slide myself over just a tad here. And the reason for that is because I do have some graphics I will share from you all. I pulled these directly from UFL's X account. Hats off to them for putting these together. They're very nice. They're very concise. So I figured it'd be a good way to show them to you all visually as I rattle off and discuss said games. So basically what I'm going to do here, I'm going to share the games the way the UFL did. They basically coupled them into pairs of weeks with 1 and 2, 3 and 4, 5 and 6, 7 and 8, and 9 and 10, all being paired together in that way. So I will do the same, and of those matchups, I will go over my favorite of those 2 weeks altogether. So I have 5 favorites I'll be sharing with you all. Like I said before, comment down below, let me hear your favorite matchups. What are you excited to see? Starting with weeks 1 and weeks 2. 8 games on deck. Obviously, we're getting 4 games a week here. Week 1, we're looking at the Stallions and Renegades, the Battlehawks and the Panthers, the Defenders and the Brahmas, and the Showboats and the Roughnecks. In week number 2, we're looking at the Brahmas and the Showboats, Renegades and the Battlehawks, the Stallions and the Panthers, and the Roughnecks and the Defenders. So some fun games to kick off the first few weeks of the season. Now, for me personally, and I think for a lot of people going into this upcoming season, a very high up on the list, and again, for I'm sure a lot of people here, is going to be that very first game of the season. That's the one on Saturday, March 30th, 1 p.m. We are getting champions versus champions between the Birmingham Stallions and the Arlington Renegades. I think it kind of speaks for itself. I don't think there is a soul, whether you're coming from the USFL side or the XFL side, that is not excited for the champion on championship season opener. That is my personal favorite. I thought about maybe coming up with one that wasn't as obvious, but I'd be lying to you all if I said that within those first 2 weeks of the season, that's not the game that I'm looking forward to the absolute most. Now, moving on to the next 2 weeks, we have week 3 and week number 4. Starting with week number 3, we have ourselves the DC Defenders heading into Arlington to take on the Renegades. We have the Showboats going into Birmingham to take on the Stallions, the Roughnecks heading on over to face the Panthers, and then the Battlehawks taking on the Brahmas in San Antonio. In week number 4, we have the Showboats taking on the Battlehawks. We have the DC Defenders heading into Birmingham to take on the Stallions. We have the Panthers going into San Antonio to take on the Brahmas, and then the Renegades being hosted by the Roughnecks. Now, for these couple of weeks of games here, one really stuck out to me and one that I'm really looking forward to seeing is going to be at Saturday, April 13th, 7 p.m. in week number 3, the Memphis Showboats going in to take on the Birmingham Stallions. A rivalry that got fairly hot last season. Obviously, that first game between the two, not very competitive at all, as the Showboats got completely demolished by the Stallions. And that second game around had a lot more animosity going on into it. But now, the Showboats taking in a lot of talent this past offseason, most importantly, bringing in quarterback Case Cookus, are a team now that are looking, with all the popularity they built last year, and now an even more fortified roster going into this second season of existence with the renewed USFL and now the UFL, have an opportunity to bring it to the champions of the USFL the last couple of seasons and potentially stake their throne as the Southern Division team to beat. So this is one that I'm really looking forward to. There's a lot going into it here, and the rivalry between the Showboats and the Stallions I felt last year was very real. So I'm excited to see this rivalry get renewed here in week number 3 of the UFL. Next group of games that we're looking at here at week number 5, we're looking at the Brahmas and the Renegades. We have the Stallions going on over to Houston to take on the Roughnecks, the Battlehawks and the Defenders, the Panthers and the Showboats. And then in week number 6, we're looking at the Stallions and the Showboats, the Roughnecks and the Battlehawks, the Renegades and the Panthers, and the Brahmas and the DC Defenders. Now for this one is an XFL affair, in my opinion. I am looking at week number 5, Sunday, April 28th at noon. This is a nice afternoon matinee on a Sunday. The St. Louis Battlehawks heading on over into DC to take on the Defenders. Two of the best and biggest fan bases, in my opinion. You have obviously what the Battlehawks did, packing their stadiums, 35,000 fans on average, week in and week out, going up against the Beer Snake and the DC Defenders in our nation's capital. This game has a very big game feel to it. I know that the attendance for this game is going to be there. I expect plenty of Battlehawks fans to show up. DC, their fans are rowdy, they are nuts, they are very fun to watch, and as somebody who obviously did not pay attention to the XFL, as I've stated a lot prior to this, but also as a USFL fan, I envied both of these fan bases because they were awesome to witness, even from afar, as someone, again, that didn't really watch, but I was aware of at least what was going on. And both the Battlehawks and Defenders, massive fan bases, raucous fan bases, and ones that I'm very excited to see go head-to-head in week number 5. Moving into the next couple of weeks, at week number 7 and 8, we have the Showboats heading on into Arlington to take on the Renegades. We have the Battlehawks heading into Birmingham to take on the Stallions, the Panthers and the DC Defenders, and then the Brahmas and the Roughnecks. A little bit of a battle in Texas over there in week number 7. In week number 8, we're looking at the Showboats and the Panthers. We have the Roughnecks and the Stallions, the Defenders and the Battlehawks, and then the Renegades and the Brahmas all going head-to-head here. And out of these 8 matchups here, the one that really stuck out to me is going to be the St. Louis Battlehawks heading into the Birmingham Stallions. The Battlehawks 7-3 last year, missing the playoffs, but a very, very good team nonetheless. This one has a big game feel as they go to take on the back-to-back USFL champions here. Birmingham is obviously the unquestioned, in my opinion, most popular team coming out of the USFL. And like I had just mentioned earlier, the Battlehawks packing their stadiums on average of about 35,000 fans. This is another one where I expect to see a lot of Battlehawks travel very well over into Birmingham, and I expect the Stallions fans to make their voices heard and to let the XFL visiting team know that, hey, yes, you guys are a massive fan base, but we are back-to-back champions, and we are going to make sure that you hear it. I expect a huge turnout for this game. This is one of those that I cannot look at this schedule and not circle. I'm very much looking forward to this one here. And then finally, the last 2 weeks of the season. Week number 9, we have the Battlehawks heading into Arlington to take on the Renegades. We have the Stallions going up against the Brahmas. We have the Defenders heading into Memphis to take on the Showboats. And then the Panthers going into Houston to take on the Roughnecks. And week 10 to wrap up the season, Panthers take on the Stallions. The Brahmas will head into St. Louis against the Battlehawks. The Renegades will take on the DC Defenders. And then the Roughnecks will wrap up their year against the Memphis Showboats. And then this one for me, I'm going to go ahead, and this is more of a fan pick than anything else. Week number 9, and I know oddly enough, if you've kind of noticed this at this point, every single game I selected was in the odd week. I tried my best to not do that by the time I got to this last one here, but it just seems like the odd numbered weeks of the season all have great games I'm really looking forward to. So week number 9, Sunday, May 26th at 2:30 p.m., the DC Defenders head into Memphis to take on the Showboats. I am going to put this out there now into the ether. These are the 2 teams that I am going to be rooting for in this season of the UFL. As somebody who was a New Orleans Breakers fan the first couple of seasons of the USFL, I don't have a team anymore to root for. I've been lost at sea, and when I heard that the Memphis Showboats were picking up a handful of Breakers guys, and Case Cookus was heading on over there as well, I felt like it was a no-brainer for me. My favorite color is also blue. It was part of the reason why I took the Breakers when the USFL restarted itself back up. I am all in on the Memphis Showboats. And then the reason why I chose Defenders and Showboats is because, as I mentioned earlier, the DC Defenders, a team that are very close, and they're the closest spring football team to me as far as the UFL is concerned, the beer snake in DC. That entire fan base, it resonates with myself very well. I loved watching that. Even, again, as somebody who didn't watch the XFL, seeing the way the DC fan base was one of those things that I looked at and was like, damn, I'd love to see that type of stuff in the USFL myself, and to now be spoiled enough to have these 2 leagues merge together, and I get to watch a league that involves teams that I enjoyed watching in the USFL, and now getting to see some of these crazy XFL fan bases come in here. DC is kind of like my adopted favorite XFL team, so having the DC Defenders, the team I very much enjoy from the XFL, heading on into Memphis to take on the team that I will be rooting for now going forward, as I had no team coming into this season in the Memphis Showboats. All aboard the hype train. I'm here for it. And this is one of those games that I hate that I have to wait till week 9 for it, but I'm also glad that I have a game to look forward to that's so far down into the season that has 2 of my favorite teams coming into this year. So with all that being said, that is basically the schedule in a quick nutshell for you all. Some of the games that I'm very much looking forward to. Obviously, some important details to note as well that we discussed early at the beginning of the video. I invite you again to comment down below. Let me know, What are your favorite matchups of the season? What are you looking forward to the most? What are your takeaways from the structure of the playoffs? There's also a bit of I don't know if I'd call it a rumor or not that's going around right now, because the UFL themselves, at least to the point of me recording this, had not announced what the championship or conference games locations and or like times, dates, anything like that are going to be. But at News UFL on X went out and tweeted that the 2024 UFL Championship is going to be hosted in St. Louis on Sunday, June 16th. I obviously, that's not from the league themselves. I'm not going to sit here and challenge credibility or anything like that. I'm just putting that out there for you all to know that that's being put out there in the ether for people to know. We'll keep an eye on it. We'll see. But if that's the case, I will share an opinion on that. I am a little bit disappointed if we don't get playoff games in Canton, because I do feel like Canton is getting shafted a little bit out of this whole spring football merger. I feel like Canton, Ohio, being the place of the Pro Football Hall of Fame, should be having things like championship games played at them. And in my opinion, for the games not to be in Canton, at least even the championship game or the playoff games or something of that extent not happening in Canton is just not, it's just not, it doesn't sit well with me, I guess is the best way I could put it. So some sour grapes on my end for that. But if it's in St. Louis, I can understand why. St. Louis is also a very big football town. They will pack a stadium for a championship game. Even if I don't think it'll end up, even if it's not the St. Louis Battlehawks in that game, I still don't see why that area wouldn't have wouldn't be able to pack a stadium full for, or very close to being full for that matter, for a championship game. But a little disappointed that we're not seeing a playoff schedule in Canton, if that ends up being the case. So something to keep an eye on, something to potentially look forward to. But again, weigh in all your thoughts, your opinions, and all that. That is it for me. I appreciate it if you took your time to make it through the whole video. I will see you all next time. Have a good one.